Welcome to Ravens Across the Pond, your place for everything Baltimore Ravens. From a fresh, European perspective. Plenty of laughs, plenty of piss-taking, and of course, questionable insights. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Ravens Across the Pond. Usual suspects are with us. You'll notice Posh Plays FF. Phil is back with us. Phil, how are we, mate?
Yeah, very well, lads. Good to see you all. Nice to see Nathan's decided to grace us with his presence back in the country for a while. Allowed back in thoroughly.
I mean, for those who don't know, Nathan has apparently he told everyone that he was going on a 2-week backpacking trip around Thailand. I don't know whether they were in the middle of an ice age there. He's got no colour on him. And also, I don't want to embarrass him live on air. I think there is a congratulations in order, Nathan. So, congratulations on your impending nuptials, however long they're going to be.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've been gone nearly 2.5 weeks, and I think got back on Friday, and I've just about worn off the jet lag. So, it's good to be here, ready to talk some football. The Ravens organisation has completely changed whilst I was away. We've got head coaches, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. So, yeah, let's get to it.
Not the first person to come back from Thailand with a Y.
Whiskey Rich is back. We've got loads to run through tonight. Obviously, Phil's on. He's going to go through his franchise stability index, his top 5 and bottom 5. He's also going to go through his 2026 first round mock. I'll give Phil a chance in a minute to let you know where you can find all his content. We'll review, obviously, the big one at the weekend, Super Bowl 60. Seahawks absolutely dominating the Patriots. And we'll try and break that down, see what happens there. But before we go any further, news coming out of Baltimore. I think we all knew it was coming. It was just waiting on confirmation. And Anthony Weeder is being confirmed as defensive coordinator. Just immediate reaction to that one, guys.
Buzzing. I think it's something we need. A familiar face, somebody that's going to predominantly look at the D-line. Motivator of men. Well happy for it. I think it fits well within what we've got going on. I think there's going to be a scheme change and a shift on defence, and I think Anthony Weaver's going to be a big part of that.
Yeah, I think obviously the choice was made a couple of seasons ago to go with Zach Orr. That didn't obviously end up necessarily being the right choice. Anthony Weaver left the building along with some other coaches. I think we lost a lot of institutional knowledge. Long-time coaches of the Ravens. So it's great to have that back in the building and hopefully establish that defensive culture within and that defensive culture, and just be able to really scare opposing teams with the strength of our defense again.
Nathan?
I mean, I think it was a big loss when we couldn't keep him with the All hire when he went off to Miami. So, yeah, it's great to have him back in the building. As Danzai just said, he's going to be a big help on the defensive line. That was kind of his role in his last stint with the Ravens, and they did great things. And I think with him coming in, shore up that line, and maybe even Madubuike will be back to help him out. Maybe he won't, but yeah, it's a great hire. I'm liking all the coaching choices that we're making at the moment. So it seems to be poised for great things, and I think it's going to be the start of hopefully what will be a very successful new era for the Ravens.
I think it was a no-brainer. As long as he didn't get an head coaching job or a play calling job, I think it was a no-brainer, really, wasn't it?
It makes sense. I think, Dan's, you mentioned the other day, didn't you? I think with Minter and the plans he kind of outlined that how it was going to work, he'd be calling plays, and you were a big fan of that, weren't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's going to predominantly be looking at this D-line, like say. I think Minter's who's coming. He's got a nice experience in secondary and back end of the defence. I think get Weaver looking after it front, and we could maybe start and get a bit of pressure on QB.
Phil, I mean, before we move on to Super Bowl, I presume you're a big fan of this hire.
Yeah, I think what stands out the most to me is a couple of people I know who are very much kind of on the Miami Dolphins train were absolutely devastated to lose him. They feel like it's a real back step to lose him. Okay, they've taken and moved in the direction they're going with the guy that's come over from Green Bay. But I think they were genuinely disappointed in find a role for him or be able to retain him. And again, I think we all thought that his next step was going to be a promotion. For whatever reason, it hasn't quite come. So yeah, just bring him home. Help him steady our ship. I'm sure in 12 months' time he will be an interview candidate again for head coaching positions or play calling defensive coordinator roles. But right now, I think we should just be delighted to have him.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I'm a huge fan of. Some of the clips that I've seen of him, but obviously he's been in the building before. He knows the organisation. Although there has been massive change in the organisation this offseason, I think it's a great move. Obviously, it's the guy that Minter wanted. He's got his guy. So everything between now and the start obviously leads to the start of next season. These coaches have got to get to work. There is a lot of talent there. There's a lot of players that have underperformed. I was critical of Zach Orr, but I think it'd be totally kind of unjust to just blame him. I think there was so many players last year who underperformed, and I think the biggest thing for me was energy and effort. It was devoid of effort, which is the big one, and the Ravens is built on effort, hard work, being deadly, being dangerous, and there was none of that. And bringing in a guy like Weaver, that is something that we're going to get in abundance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody? What did we all do for the Super Bowl then, lads?
Tried to stay up, fell asleep, caught halftime show, went back to bed. Pretty much how it went, if I'm being totally honest with you.
Yeah, so obviously, courtesy of our sponsors, Stacked. Obviously, we were invited down to the Super Bowl event down in London. So me and Ollie went. It was at the fantastic Blood Sports Bar in Covent Garden. If you are ever down in London and you want to catch a game on TV and you like that American dive bar feel, food, it's the place to be. It was unbelievable in there. The atmosphere was phenomenal. It was great being surrounded by, obviously, not just Patriot fans and Seahawks fans there to try and, enjoy the moment, but being surrounded by other NFL fans and getting to meet a lot of people and, try and carry on building what we're building here. Obviously, earlier on in the night as well, before that, we had a great meeting with the guys at Stacked and the Hippodrome. Put everything in place for what we've got coming draft night. So for those, if you haven't seen our socials, if you haven't, or if you're not following us on socials to catch all the news, head on over, give us a follow. All our socials and on the ticker at the bottom. But April the 23rd, Hippodrome Casino, Leicester Square. We are bringing you a first round draft night event. We've got guest speaker. There's going to be all kinds of stuff going on there. And I mean, firstly, if it wasn't for everybody who listens, subscribes, everything, then without you guys, this wouldn't happen. There'd be no reason for us to do it. And it's open to everybody, fans of every. We want representatives of all 32 teams there. We've been in touch with all 32 teams. We've been in touch with the 9 teams that have got UK and Ireland marketing rights, and we've had some great things back from them. So there is going to be tons of stuff coming up. So if we've only released a small part of what's coming. We're just going to drip feed it to you between now and then. So keep an eye out. All of those guys will be there. There'll be live pods. There'll be live reactions to draft picks. So it's going to be a great event. So that was the start of our Super Bowl night, really. It was a great way to start. On the subject of the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 60, San Francisco Bay Area. For me, it kind of felt like the game was over, and this sounds ridiculous. It kind of felt like the game was over after like the first couple of opening drives. I think the Patriots' first 9 drives, they punted 8 times. It was an absolute defensive masterclass by the Seahawks. They knew who to target. There's so much to break down in that, and is it a case of where New England untested, a lot has been said about their strength of schedule throughout the season, and a lot of things went right for them in the playoffs. Bo Nix breaking his ankle, sitting out the game. So we're going to break it all down. I mean, immediately, what I said earlier in the group is that possibly the biggest mismatch in a Super Bowl for a long time.
Probably since Denver and was it Denver blowing out Carolina?
Was it like 50-3? Was it?
Yeah, 48-3, something like that. Look, I'll give you my thoughts first, if you don't mind, fellas. Like, there's 2 things that come out of it. One, the inevitable kind of fallout will be how we can copy what Mike Mack's defense did. From a Ravens perspective. And first and foremost, I just think it's really interesting that when you look at, like, everyone will tell you, we need edge rushers, we need edge rushers, we need edge rushers. You know, that's where everyone wants us to spend big capital in the draft and things like that. If you look at their sack total for the season, they had sacks by committee. There wasn't a single player on their roster score more than 7 sacks, but 3 guys split 7 sacks each. So Nwosu, Leonard Williams, and Byron Murphy all had 7 sacks. Demarcus Lawrence had 6. Eamon Wari chipped in with a couple. Boye Mafe chipped in with a couple. It was a little bit like our defense of a couple of years back when
2024 Ravens,
yeah, exactly. And I just think I think I'm cool with us not swinging big on an edge rusher in the first round, because I don't think we need. And you look at the Eagles before it. I think I read somewhere the Eagles in 2024 had very kind of similar production in terms of the sacks coming from across the team rather than from one standout player. And it just shows if you can, dip into date or the second wave of free agency and find, he's out of contract again. Jadeveon Clowney, right? Take a guy in the second or third round. There's a lot of talent in the second and third round this year. I don't think we need to spend that big draft capital to replicate what's been successful in the last couple of years. So that's my kind of takeaway from the Seahawks side of things. From the Patriots side of things, just don't deviate from the plan. This year's been amazing for them. Like, let's just tell it how it is. I don't think in their wildest dreams they were chuffed to bits to get Vrabel back. They drafted well and have done for a couple of years under Elliott Wolf. But don't deviate from the plan. What you don't want to do, I think they've got quite a bit of cap money to spend this year. Don't sling it all in on aging veterans and rush your rebuild, right? Just spend wisely, stick to the plan. And I think they'll be fine for a while. They might not hit the heights again next season. I do expect some natural regression. But yeah, they're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine because they've got skill in the right places. And to their credit, a hell of a head coach.
Yeah, I think I'd like to give Mike McDonald his flowers. I think did I read he's the first defensive head coach play caller to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
what he's done in his first real full season's unbelievable. Some of his blitzers and stuff like that. He got him in twists, and he were absolutely phenomenal. And the defense that he's now got are wonderful. It were a pleasure to see the highlights that I saw. It's great. I just hope that he can keep a squad together because, like you say, free agency and stuff like that, and players needing contracts and stuff like that, it's keeping the team together. But what he's done this season is unbelievable.
I mean, when you look at it, when you just break it down, and I'll just read a few things out here. Obviously, Drake May was sacked 6 times on the 9th. He took Joe Burrow's record for most postseason sacks. Seattle forced 2 interceptions, a strip sack that became a touchdown. forced New England to punt 8 times in the first 9 drives. By the end of the third quarter, New England had 78 total yards, only 5 first downs. That's not just like, I mean, there's defensive domination, and then there's that, and to do that on the biggest stage of them all, it's phenomenal coaching. It's phenomenal execution by the players, being given a plan, go out and do it. Reports came out in the Washington Post. I think it might have been yesterday, late last night. I saw it early this morning that Seattle had discovered a pre-snap telling in the Patriots offensive line. They come out and they said we could read the guards and the tackles, and they knew exactly what was coming. They knew where the protection was sliding. They knew where the weak spot was. They targeted Will Campbell and Jared Wilson. Bear in mind, I didn't realize that Wilson was drafted last year. I thought he was the year before. So obviously they've targeted the 2 rookies there, the 2 weak spots, and it was just utter film study dominance for me. That comes from your coaches. That comes from your coordinators. It was just to see. I mean, obviously the satisfying feeling for them coaches and the players to win something like that. But they must that satisfying feeling. They must also get knowing that we've called this plan, and it was perfect. He didn't have to go to a plan A or plan B. I know earlier in the kind of midway through the first quarter, switch from nickel to dime, and that changed things. Patriots, and they just overwhelmed the Patriots. Seattle were leading 19-0 before the Pats scored, and just once they fell behind that much, their entire offensive identity collapsed. I think there's a couple of plays that Drake May is going to definitely want back. A couple of times where he could have threw the ball away and not given up, 10 yards on the sack. I think Phil's right in what he said. Stick to the plan. There's talent there, but also there is a lot of serious questions, I think, guys.
Yeah, I mean, once a defense has worked out not just where your protection's going, but they also seem to even know exactly when it was going to get snapped, because Witherspoon was literally on the line the moment it got snapped nearly every time, and it didn't matter whether he was kind of starting 10 yards behind and then kind of rushing in, or starting on the line. He just knew every time. So yeah, there was obviously something had been caught where they knew exactly what was happening, and Witherspoon had an immense game. I think he had like 5 or 6 QB hits just by himself, so he knew exactly what was going on. Probably unlucky. Well, there were lots of people that probably could have got Super Bowl MVP. Walker was probably just about the right choice. I know our kicker enthusiast Phil probably would say that Myers deserved it, but I think anyone on the defense could have got it as well. So it was a complete dominating effort by the Seahawks, and it was completely well deserved. And it probably sadly won't be the last time we see the Patriots in this position. Their demise and their tank didn't last as long as we all hoped it would, and they're going to be around for a while, so we have that to look forward to.
I'll tell you what it was good for as well, that the Aidan Durden, Seattle's DC, flying the flag for British NFL coaching. I was buzzing to see that, and he's had a meteoric rise, hasn't it, at top, and I'm buzzing for that. I think he's going to be on the lips of head coaching opportunities soon, or at least play calling opportunities soon. And he's earned his stripes. I'm buzzing for him, to be fair.
I think the scary thing about like Mike McDonald and this Seattle Seahawks defense is it's like a modern Legion of Boom, and you saw how dominant that Legion of Boom were. Like my early prediction ridiculously early prediction for Super Bowl 61 is the Seattle Seahawks are going to be back there. If they can, I know they've got a couple of free agents coming up, but if they can get deals done and get, they've also got to look at the likes of Jackson Smith and Jigba is now for the first time in his career, looking for a contract extension. So there's a lot of players who are going to be getting played, a lot of free agents there. But I think if they can keep a lot of the band together under Mike McDonald, they're assuring me for.
I think the standard chance we'll have a Darnold's contract's decent. When you start paying people 50, 55 million top QB money, that's when your quality starts to diminish across team. But if they've got a decent QB on a decent deal, you stand a better chance to keep some players around him. And at the minute they have.
It's a damn tricky division to even get out of, though. Never mind repeat a Super Bowl win out of. I think the NFC West will be just as competitive next year. So
definitely.
Honourable mention as well to corner. The amount of corner blitzes from Devon Witherspoon, he was just phenomenal tonight. Again, just supreme play calling, supreme execution from the guy. We've mentioned there about MVPs. For me, if coaches were included in game day MVP allocations, Mike McDonald takes the MVP, but Devon Witherspoon would have been my second choice there. Just phenomenal. Just touching on the Pats, Phil. I know I asked you this before in the chat. Will Campbell, rookie, out of LSU. What have you seen from him this year? And is the cause for concern there? Is Mike Vrabel doing the? I know it's ridiculously early, and he's had to come out and say, but they're going to stick with him where he is at the moment in that position.
So there's a couple of things, right? First and foremost, go back and watch him over the first 8 weeks of the season, right? Because those concerns were certainly not anything then, right? He started well. You asked me earlier about his projection and what I said, and I think I echoed a lot of what was going around. That he was phenomenally talented, great footwork, slightly undersized, all right? Everyone talks about arm length on offensive tackles, and he does have those short arms, which was why, with his quality of footwork as well, I always thought he would project better inside at guard, just like a lot of people did, to be fair. And whilst I think he is competent and a capable tackle, and he'll continue to grow and he'll continue to develop, I think if they want to get the best out of him, moving him inside would prolong his ability to play at the top level, and they should explore at least other tackle options. But that said, there's nothing to say. I mean, look, he got injured, he was banged up, he's playing with a torn ligament in his knee, and it won't excuse the way he feels. I mean, there was all these reports, wasn't there, about him refusing to talk to people in the locker room afterwards. He was just forlorn, dejected. He apparently wasn't a great media interview afterwards. Wouldn't talk to people. I suppose the learning thing from that is it's a young guy that's hurting who knows he might have been able to do more for his team in the biggest moment. But there's absolutely no doubt I don't change my evaluation from what I saw last year and during his time at LSU. Incredibly talented. Great footwork, great lateral movement on the line. He's undersized, but we've seen guys win like that. But perhaps his best football is at guard.
And just on Drake May, obviously, it wasn't a great night for him. I know that he had to have a painkilling injection in his shoulder before the night. Do you think he's looking at that game and there's a couple of plays there he's looking back on and thinking, I want to take them back?
It's natural, isn't it? It's completely natural. What I would say is where they were caught short, long term is not a him thing, right? The next part of the thing for him now is to continue to surround him with weapons, build the infrastructure around him, and allow him to thrive. Like the comment there, look at supporting the O-line in free agency. Again, get Matt Collins back. Matt Collins has been brilliant from this season. Such an underrated player. Has spent a career being productive and very good anywhere he's been. Get him signed on again. I believe he's a pending free agent. sign him up. He's not going to cost the earth, but he's going to add value. You know, look to find young weapons through the draft to continue to build around him, because you've got your franchise quarterback. I've got no doubt about it.
Yeah, if you've got to give him, I think even though it was the biggest stage ever, you've got to give him a pass. I think if, as Patriots fans, if you looked at where they've come from to where they are this season, they'd have snatched your hand off.
Absolutely.
He's performed. He can, and they always say, "Oh, the strength of schedule," which we're a part of. But ultimately, any team can beat anybody in this league on any given Sunday. So he's turned up. He's played. He's had a bad game, but they've got a lot to be hopeful and promising about. And I've got no worries about Drake. I think he'll be a top quality quarterback in the league. So let's let him have a good off season and let him go again. There's no worries for me.
The lasting impression Ravens fans will have of him was just how he put us to the sword. And you can make arguments about where our defense was at this year and things like that. But that was the biggest test. People talk about them having an easy schedule. We aren't an easy team for anyone to play. Yeah, we had a down year. All right. But he made plays in that game that was surgical, picked us apart, extended drives with his legs, did everything you would expect him to do from his evaluations pre-draft and what he's looked to do since he's joined New England. They're right for a long time with him. I certainly wouldn't be worried if I was a Pats fan.
Do we think? I know we were just touching on the strength of schedule there, and I know there's been a lot of kind of stuff thrown that way at the Pats over strength of schedule, and I've been not a supporter of them, but I've been keen to kind of back it and go, well, strength of schedule, you've got to beat the teams in front of you, and they've done that pretty much every Sunday this year in the league, and as you say, Phil, we're not an easy team to beat. There's things in that game that obviously we've talked about before that coulda, woulda, shoulda. I think we win that game, but the bottom line is they came here and they put one over on us. Yeah. But do we think the strength of schedule, the only effect that it's had on them that they weren't battle tested, they weren't battle hardened?
No, I think it's a lazy narrative. If I'm completely honest, I think it's something easy to lobby at anybody, and that kind of excuse culture that we want to build stories that aren't there because it makes a nice story. Like I don't buy anything into it at all. Like you've already said, the league thrives on its ability to create parity. Yeah, we know there are good sides and weaker sides, but they've had to play Buffalo twice in their own division. Any divisional game going to Miami isn't always going to be easy. Look at, dare I say it, look at, they've played our division as well. They've had to play the North, and there's no side in the North, as we well know, that give you an easy game. So it's a lazy narrative for me.
I mean, one thing's for certain, they're going to be back next year. Whether they get the amount of wins they did this season is doubtful. But a lot of rookies there that have had that experience now. They're going to want to learn from it. Will Campbell carrying an injury, as you say, if he's had that from, you mentioned there, at the first 8 weeks of the season, and obviously the decline after that, maybe that has been a thing then, and he's been playing through injury.
Well, I think one thing that's going to help them next year, obviously there's been a lot of churn in the AFC this offseason. So you look at some of those kind of the better teams in the AFC, the Ravens, new head coach, the Steelers, new head coach, the Bills, a new coach, the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes is going to be returning from an ACL at some point. I suppose like Bo Nix broken ankle, how might that impact him early on in the season? To an extent, the AFC is really churning for next season, and nobody quite knows how that's going to play out. And therefore, the Pats might be going into it as one of the teams with the most stability.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely.
You left me speechless there, Richard, for the first time ever.
That's not true.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, one thing I will say, a couple of things I want to put on record. I'm not a secret Pats lover. I hate them as much as we all do, but recognition is deserved. And two, the other thing is the amount of hate that Bills Mafia are being dishing out to Pat fans. You're not in a position to be dishing out that hate. So, you know what I mean?
Bills fans had swapped to be Pats fans in it with their record any day.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Never the bride.
Yeah, that is it. That is it. So yeah, Jose Martinez, thank you for the comments. We're gonna move on now. Phil does a lot of contributions for us. He's been outstanding with everything. I was going to say pretty much everything. That's doing him a great injustice. Everything Phil does is meticulous. The fountain of knowledge he's got is superb, and like I think it's fair to say that we're privileged that Phil gives up so much of his time to come on the show. Phil,
he loves a spreadsheet as well.
Yeah,
don't forget that. Don't forget that.
loves a Google workbook. Phil,
and it's what led him to be the runner-up in our Dynasty UK West League last season. So,
go on, Phil. You're right to return.
Nah, man. Remember the word dynasty. There's one of us that's going to win it for years, and one that's
back to back. I think that pretty much is a dynasty at this point. Back to back winner. I might not win it again for the next 3 or 4 years, but I've got those 2 under my belt.
I'm predicting that your dynasty next year, Nathan, is going to go as well as your sunbed did when you were on holiday, mate.
I'll keep the receipt. It's fine.
Phil's going to take us through his franchise stability index. He's going to explain what that is for people who don't know what it is, the work that he's put into to get to where he is now. Phil, for listeners and viewers that aren't aware, give us a rundown of franchise stability index, how it works, the calculations, and how you get to the results that you have.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's so cool that you've invited me on to talk about this. I mean, I'll talk Ravens and I'll talk ball every time, but this is something I'm really passionate about because those of you that know me know I play in way too many dynasty leagues. I'm a bit of a fantasy football addict. And I was sat in a WhatsApp chat mid-season, probably early November, and someone called a QB a bust. And it made me bristle because one of the things I absolutely love is I love scouting. I consider myself an absolute armchair scout, an armchair GM. And I like everybody, I put the work in, and this guy for me does not fall under the bust category whatsoever. And it just made me kind of run that kind of simple idea through something that's been talked about a lot, but never really kind of quantified or studied. Do teams bust QBs or do QBs bust teams? So that was the kind of starting thing. And it was this idea, like, do quarterbacks fail because they're not good enough or because the environment around them fails them? The guy in question was Trevor Lawrence, right? And that was before he got hot through December and actually really started to ball out for the Jags. But then when you look at it, like, there's others, like Baker Mayfield when he was at the Browns. Sam Darnold, we've talked about tonight, Super Bowl winning quarterback, the first of that 2018 crop to go and win a Super Bowl. Well, Christ, if you'd have seen that a couple of years ago when he was playing at the Jets, you wouldn't have thought that was possible. Justin Fields drafted to the Bears, discarded. Poor guy. Steelers, then Jets. The common thread, like for me, just isn't talent. It's the instability of the situations that they find themselves in. Like, development of these guys is delicate, and every time a coach changes, every time there's a losing culture that's set in, bad protection on the offensive line, poor investment in the skill positions, like, that development curve shifts. Like, we're talking incessantly about like QB traits, but we almost never ever talk about the environment they end up in. So I decided, like, that's the part that the franchises can actually control, and we should look at it a little bit more.
coming out, Trevor Lawrence was like one of the best QBs in well over a decade. I think it was widely considered. There was Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, and then Trevor Lawrence in terms of what he'd put on record at Clemson. But he was drafted into absolute chaos. He was drafted into a Jags franchise, the Urban Meyer experiment, which finished disastrously. He had 2 head coaches and 2 offensive coordinators in his first season. There was a losing culture, a losing mindset, and finally, now stability has started to arrive. His elite traits are beginning to surface. Like, his talent didn't change. The environment did. So he didn't all of a sudden just become a good QB in year 5. He was a good QB all along. It was just what had stopped that from showing before it. So, being a maths teacher by day, I went away and I went into numbers mode. I was like, right, how can we quantify this? And that set me about what the franchise stability index is now. I wanted a way we can quantify something that we all talk about that made sense, at least at a surface level. So I've looked at 4 things. Coaching stability, win percentage over 3 years, sack rate over 3 years, and then offensive skill position spending over 10 years. And they're all weighted slightly differently. Like, for me, the biggest thing that affects a young QB is coaching stability. So every time there's a head coordinator change or an OC change, the entire language of everything they have to do changes all over again. I don't know if anybody saw it. The Reese Sammet quote this week, where he was talking about having to learn 1,500 plays and how all the verbiage changed. Like, if you think about what a QB has got on their plate in terms of knowing where everyone is and everybody's language changing, every time you do that through a head coach change or an OC change, it is huge, absolutely huge. Then the win percentage, obviously, if you look at these kind of traditional winning franchises and that winning culture, it's embedded throughout. So I kind of broke it down as 40% towards coaching, 30% towards win percentage, 20% towards sack rate. So offensive line and protection. So on true drop back passing sets, the percentage of sacks per season. And then 10% finally to offensive skill spending, because everything is a little bit better when you've got elite weapons to throw to. From there, it just basically spits out a number, an average over 3 years that I've quantified between 1 and 100, and just basically split it into a traffic light system. Green for if it's a stable environment, yellow for volatile, and then red for the danger zone. So the FSI isn't about how good a team is. It's about how safe an environment is for a quarterback to develop inside. That's the idea of it.
In what does FSI tell us about the future? So, going into this draft and you're looking at FSI, what does that tell you about the future of that organization and the future of that player potentially becoming the best version of himself in the league, or not fulfilling the supposed potential that he's got? And that's not a downfall on him, but a downfall on how stable the franchise is. Yeah,
that's a really good question, Tom, because it started off as like a kind of retrospective dig back, but then I kind of shifted it to, what can we learn moving forward? It doesn't predict success. Okay, that's the first thing to make sure. It basically predicts developmental safety. I suppose the best way you can put it is a great QB in the danger zone. Right, so we're talking a truly elite QB who gets drafted into a franchise that's in the danger zone, basically faces an uphill battle, a little bit like you saw with Trevor Lawrence. But a mid QB in a stable franchise has a real chance to outperform expectations. Now, please, before Texans fans lose their mind and think I'm calling CJ Stroud mid, right? That would be the kind of example I'm talking about here. He maybe didn't have the elite traits of a Trevor Lawrence, but he was drafted into a way more stable situation. And, if you use that perfect kind of A and B test of Stroud against Young and how Bryce Young was drafted to the Panthers, like, they will have massively split a room on who was the better QB. But one of them was an offensive rookie of the year, whilst one lost a head coach and went through absolute turmoil and is only now, again, 3 years in, starting to look like the number 1 overall pick in flashes. Like I said, FSI doesn't tell you who the next superstar QB is going to be. It just tells you who's about to get thrown into the fire and how to temper your expectations. So in terms of like predictions for the future, what I want to look at kind of moving forward is like this kind of idea of a comfort matrix. So kind of where FSI meets your traditional scouting report, like that's where your projection for FSI can be quite powerful. If you look at a scouting report that talks about processing speed, pocket poise, adaptability, mental resilience, it becomes clear that some QBs need structure whilst others are more capable to withstand chaos. So the idea is like to pair QB profiles with FSI scores to create this idea of a comfort matrix. So a team that scores crap on your FSI score and a low resilience QB is an absolute disaster risk. However, a high FSI team with a raw developmental QB, okay, has a better chance of actually achieving something.
So what you've gone on and done, and I know you've been nice enough to give us your top 5 and bottom 5. We'll go through them now. Let me just shift the screen over so we're all on one side and I can get the images up. Do you want to go with obviously your bottom 5, and we'll start off with who is kind of 5th of the bottom 5, and we'll work our way up to who finishes bottom there in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is in no way meant to stitch up your guy who kindly gave us a little shout out on his comment earlier, the Browns fan, but it's the Cleveland Browns in 5th. Okay, so you need to score 50 or higher to score above or out of the danger zone. The Browns come in at 37.6. Recently, there has been more coaching stability through Kevin Stefanski. Obviously, they're a long time. But the change this summer is going to have a knock-on effect on that. But then 30% of it goes down to winning culture and winning record. And the Browns have only had kind of one season where they broke around 500 in the last 3 years. So that massively kind of hits their score. Look, I don't want this to become a knock the Browns thing on a Ravens podcast. But I think if a Cleveland Brown fan looks inward, they'll know that they've not been the model of stability for some time. You look back at when Baker Mayfield was there. Baker obviously was drafted 1 overall, which was maybe a surprise. But he's in a position where he wasn't supported. He became a scapegoat through poor play. So the coaching, the kind of changeover and kind of cycle of new QB. Obviously, the stability index doesn't measure poor contracts given to other QBs. But obviously, that'll play a big part in it as well. And obviously, it all goes into that winning record. Because obviously, if you spend X amount of million on a QB that's more bothered about sitting on massage tables, then, you know, ultimately, when he's suspended, the franchise isn't going to win without him because they've kind of put themselves in that position. The Browns aren't a bad team. Like we've seen it. Like defensively, when you've got Myles Garrett, you've always got a chance. But it'll take them a couple of years of winning before they kind of get out of this zone at the moment on this kind of methodology.
Just on the Browns, I know you say obviously like coaching changes go into FSI, but how do you calculate for the sheer idiocy in the executive positions moving on, obviously, from Stefanski? It's not going to do any, know what I mean? Everybody knew he was going to get snapped up straight away. So how do you take into the fact that you've got lunatics running the asylum?
I think it just shows, doesn't it? Like, again, respectfully, why... Again, FSI talks about that thing we all know, but nobody really tries to quantify, that there are franchises that routinely make smart decisions and will stay in that stable zone and ones that don't and struggle. All this does is try and quantify just how dangerous the situation is. What it says to me is Shedeur Sanders as the starter, as long as he's there. You know, 5th round pick, my evaluations weren't overly high. I had a late first round grade, early second round grade on Shador. A lot's going to have to go right for him to bust this model. We'll just wait and see what happens. Tom's on mute.
Who's in it? Sorry, I nearly started laughing when we were talking about the lunatics running the asylum, and then I was joking. And just every time I see the Browns logo on the screen, Jose, I know you've just subscribed as well. It just makes me nearly die laughing. Who's in it? Number 4 then on the bottom 5.
So number 4
2.
is
However we call it.
Yeah, so number 4 or 4th from bottom, if you like, was a surprise for me because when I was chucking the numbers in, I genuinely thought they would be closer to the bottom. And it's the New York Jets who come in at 32.3. Now, this is a franchise, again, who are much maligned publicly for making poor choices. The Aaron Rodgers experiment failed massively. Justin Fields is there at the moment. They've not in a position at the moment, I would argue, to get a guy at quarterback, or at least, let's put it this way, with a score like this in the franchise stability index, it would say to me, with the draft capital they've got, don't take a quarterback now, because what it does is it increases the rate of them struggling developmentally. And if they don't bust that cycle, they're going to stay in that cycle. So it might be really, really tempting to Jets fans at the moment. Now, I can't see them taking anybody at 2. I cannot see a world where the Raiders, even though FSI might not suggest it, don't take Fernando Mendoza at 1. But I can't see a position where the Jets take a QB at 2. Absolutely no way. Because 1, I don't think there's a QB worthy of that slot. And 2, the Jets have shown that they're not a stable environment for developing that talent at the moment. We saw it with Darnold. We've seen how they were unable to get the best out of Aaron Rodgers. We've seen, not that he's a young QB, but then we've seen, the trying to salvage Justin Fields project. Like, something's got to change at the moment. Now, the Jets do have a unique opportunity. They're loaded with 5 first-round picks over the next 2 seasons. FSI would suggest get good footballers through the door and find your QB later. Don't rush it this year and force it. But again, there's a reason why these teams stay down here, and the Jets are always known for making the smartest choices.
Touching on the you mentioned there the QB and going number 2, the one that I mentioned to the guys before, and don't know whether it came as shock to. I watched college football. Maybe it didn't come as much as a shock to most like it did to me. Dante Moore, does he back himself to go back to college next year? Probably for going around about 55 million projected earnings if he was to go in that first round. Has he done that purely because the Jets were likely going to take him, or do you think there's something else behind it? Do you think NIL's also played a part in that?
Massively. There's no amount of money he can't get paid at Oregon if he don't want it, with Phil Knight in charge and paying all that Nike money to them. But there's also, like, when we talk about the comfort matrix, like Dante Moore of your Ty Simpsons, Fernando Mendoza's, Dante Moore's, I actually think has got the kind of skill set best to withstand being drafted into dysfunction. However, there's also this idea, it's a big thing at the moment that I've talked about for a few years, and all of a sudden it seems to be this buzz thing that everyone's talking about, time on task. And if you go back and check out our wildcard Devy Pods and now Dynasty Hot Seat Devy Pods, I've been talking about this for 3 or 4 seasons. I've done some work on drafting using the Parcells matrix, which is where he would only draft guys that had got so many starts in college. And when you look at guys who have experienced success recently, whether it was Bo Nix, whether it was Jaden Daniels, Cam Ward, drafted 1 overall this year, all these guys had lots of starts. And at the moment, Dante Moore doesn't. And getting that time on task, getting those reps and that familiarity will make him a better prospect next year. And for QBs, right, what you've got to remember with these young QBs, if they are top tier talents, they're paid the same on the rookie scale anyway, regardless. Like, all right, the slots change it by a couple of mil over those first 4 or 5 years. The money's in the second contract, and how well they play and where they're drafted will affect their value on the second contract, which is where they make that life-changing money.
I know it's hard to say because they've still got a full year of college football to go. Does Dante Moore go in the first round next year?
Oh, without a doubt. It'd have gone 2 overall this year, and he'll go in the first round next year. Will it be as high? Well, that all depends on the development curve of the college QBs, your Arch Mannings, Lenoris Sellers. I can't think of his name. The kid at Ohio State, Julian Sayin, amongst others. So it will all depend on how they play and how the kind of landscape shakes out. But he's a first-round talent.
Spot on. Who's in at number 3?
Number 3, again, affected by coaching changes. So a coach that we know very, very well, the New York Giants. So the big thing for the New York Giants, right? And this is interesting because to me, I think they've got their QB. And I now firmly believe they've got their head coach. But the reason Harbs got that job and was so coveted for that job was because they need to stem that systemic losing culture, which weighs so heavily in the FSI kind of matrix. 30% of it is down to win-loss record. And if I look for my raw numbers at the moment, if you just bear with me. Over the past 3 seasons, New York Giants have had, I think, a grand total of 7 wins in 3 seasons. So that is why they are going to score so low. It's like I said, I firmly believe they've got the right guy there now in Jackson Dart. It's just about stabilizing the situation around him. So they'll be penalized heavily for the coaching changes in Harbs and then the OC. And then likewise for that losing culture. But long term, yeah, again, completely agree with that comment down there. New York doesn't help the case either. The media are like hyenas. You see it all the time. I think they've got a QB there at the moment who can withstand that temperament and that mentality. I think they've got a head coach that will surround him with leadership and look after him and help steer him and his renegade running back as well, who we all love to laugh at. But, I think they're a team that are on an upward trajectory, but it will take a while for them to climb out of the danger zone because it's weird over a 3-year cycle.
New York are a really interesting position here because with the new head coach, with Dart, with Malik Neighbors, and a top 5 draft pick, they are really in a position to do something, I think, for the new season. In a divisions outside of the Eagles isn't particularly difficult to get out of. So if everyone can kind of stay healthy and they make some right choices this season, they could definitely, I think, be a dark horse candidate for a big bounce back year.
Yeah.
Just on that New York point, I think you alluded to this, Phil. Obviously, Big John Harbaugh going over there with a whole bunch of kind of Ravens staff and Ravens mentality. Do you think that is obviously a franchise? I mean, John Harbaugh is a great NFL coach in his own right, but do you think that's a franchise recognizing that they've had instability and really kind of transplant a culture from a team that I would imagine is reasonably high on your index?
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, Rich. We know that Harbs doesn't take responsibility for either side of the ball. We know that he trusts his team to do that. His job is, and it became that kind of buzzword phrase, isn't it? A CEO head coach. But it's his job to pull the strings and oversee everything and develop that culture. And yeah, I think he's going to succeed there. I think he's going to do really, really well. I know I don't want this to turn into a John Harbaugh podcast. If we're going to talk head coaches, we want to talk Jesse Minter. But I expect over the next couple of years, like I said, because of the systemic losing culture over the last couple of years, it's going to take a while for this number to climb them out of the danger zone. The good news is I think they've got their QB. And I think they've got their head coach in place now. So you should see that number start to creep up.
Excellent. Who have you got coming in at number 2?
Yeah, so dropping down to the arse end of the rankings now. So to be clear, this is second from bottom. Is the Las Vegas Raiders. And you'll see the score drop there. Okay, you want to talk about a team who is suffering from instability, high coaching changes. Just double checking, they scored joint lowest for coaching changes because they've had consecutive seasons where they went from Pierce to Carroll, and then the OC changed both years as well. And obviously, it's going to change again this year with Clint Kubiak coming in. We assume it's not been confirmed yet, but all but confirmed. And then with that, obviously, he's going to want to bring in an OC as well, no doubt. So the coaching score absolutely hammers them. The losing culture hammers them. Where they actually scored relatively well is in terms of the skilled cap spending, but then you look at what they've got for it. They've got Brock Bowers on a rookie contract. They had 1 year where they paid Devontae Adams through the nose, which has kind of dragged that up, which is still weighted in these figures. But yet, look, they're a mess. They're a mess, and it's going to take time to sort out. And those of you who know my work well enough will know that I told people, so I'm a big Devy fantasy football player, and I told people as early as June last year to go and get Fernando Mendoza because people weren't talking about him, and I knew that his year was going to be big. He's a lock now for the 101. He's had a hell of a season and really stepped forward. But I don't know whether he can survive this level of dysfunction. Here's hoping again, what would have made me more confident would have been had Harbs taken that job. Now, if you get a leader and a culture builder like Harbs in that job, rather than a rookie head coach, and I'm taking nothing away from the offensive creativity of Clint Kubiak, but this is a job that's going to take a while to steady the ship. I think Kubiak's going to need a hell of a team around him. And I just worry that Fernando Mendoza, in spite of his talent, he's been backed into a situation where he's going to struggle early on. That is, of course, if he goes 101.
I think Kubiak's got a hell of a job on for his first head coaching job. He's took a hell of a challenge on, but I think he's took it on thinking that he can develop Mendoza and turn this around. I think that's part and parcel of what's been happening here. I think if they ain't got the 101 and they ain't got a QB lined up that he likes the look of, I don't think he's even sniffing at that job.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm just on Clint. I've got a horrific feeling that this time next year he's going to probably be sitting there thinking, "Why did I take that job?" And as you said, I don't think he takes that job if they haven't got the number 1 pick in the draft and they're going to take Mendoza. I just think the culture of the Raiders, systematically down the years, I just think that a bin fire of an organisation.
He's also got the Max Crosby to deal with, who seems to want, from everything you read, he seems to wanting out the door.
Yeah, Max Crosby doesn't want to do another rebuild. How many years he's been in the league now? He hasn't got time to do another rebuild. He's trying to. He wants to get that ring, doesn't he, before he finishes?
The one thing for Kubiak, though, is that he could be rubbing his hands thinking, if I can get something out of Mendoza this year alongside Brock Bowers and Ashton Genty, that could be a ridiculously fun offense to watch next year.
Yeah. The comment there, sorry, guys, the comment there from Jose, look, I believe Fernando Mendoza is that talented. I genuinely do. What we've got to consider and what the FSI kind of encourages you to consider is the length of time that's going to take. I agree, 2 to 3 years. Yeah, he could be a Pro Bowler, but is he going to be given that time? Because in 2 to 3 years, a coach is on the hot seat. There's changes afoot, and that's what this is designed to test. It's designed to test the stability of the franchise. Is and again, I might be doing this guy a disservice because I'm really not overly familiar with his work. But is a rookie coach in Clint Kubiak the guy that's going to set that up 2 years down the line if his job's on the hot seat? Is he going to be loyal to the guy that he takes here? It's so difficult to predict, but they're in a mess. They're in an absolute mess, and it's you're right. It's going to take a long time to sort.
I know it's a different side at ball, but you only have to look at Robert Saleh. Incredible defensive mind, but then he took the Jets on, and which, as you just seen from your FSI, an absolute bin fire, and he's on his way before he's even got a chance to kind of turn it around.
Absolutely.
Phil, go on then. Who takes the bin fire trophy?
Yeah, so that goes to Tennessee. Tennessee are the definition at the moment of an unstable franchise. They have the worst win percentage over the last 3 years. They have had multiple coaching changes at OC and head coach now in the last 3-year cycle. Sack rate is incredibly high. Now, that's not all on Cam Ward, although they didn't do a great job of protecting him this last season. Obviously, Will Levis also cops a lot for that as well, and you can question whether or not he was always the right starting choice when he was dropping back and not always knowing when to let go of the ball. But the prevalent thing again for me, although it's the lowest scoring section at the moment, is they've not supported him with any weapons. Now, they went young in the draft. They took Ayamanor. They took Cam Ward's pal Restrepo in the later rounds from Miami, who might still grow and show something. But they've really, really not supported him with any kind of expenditure to give him a supporting cast. Again, they're in this real position where do they build and protect him first? Because I like Cam Ward, man. I was high on Cam Ward coming out. And I think we've seen in flashes just what he could be. But that franchise, again, is in a position where it's going to take a while to turn it around. And that starts with that age-old kind of battle of team-building philosophy. Do you get in weapons or do you get in protection?
I mean,
Yeah.
Ask Joe Burrow. Just a comment there, Phil, from Patriots Touchback. I think he was expecting the Cardinals to be the worst franchise there.
Let's have a look exactly where the Cardinals come out. So the Cardinals are the highest scoring team to make the danger zone. So they are a small step away from moving out of that zone. I'll spoil that. I'm releasing 32 in 32 days at the moment, but I'll spoil that for you. Absolutely.
Sorry, Phil.
No, it's cool. Honestly, I love that people are interested in asking questions. Obviously, coaching change this year has affected that. They have not got the best winning record over 3 seasons, but they spend. They have spent to try and fix the problems, and the sack rate is surprisingly low. They score well in terms of protection. Would it surprise you to know that over the last 3 seasons, we've scored worse on sack rate than the Cardinals?
Not after this season, it won't.
So yeah, they are the last team at the moment. They've got a score of 47. They need a score of over 50 to get out of there and move up into the volatile category. Of all the teams that are down there, they are the ones I think that will be best prepared to handle a rookie QB should they find themselves in possession of one. I think it's more likely they look at bridging the gap this year with a veteran. It appears it's not going to be Kyler Murray, and then they attack the 2027 class. But again, they've invested. They spent a lot on defense this year. They brought in some nice pieces. Whoever they get in on offense, they're going to have to support. But whoever it is, maybe they can get the best out of that absolute machine they've got and so far left sitting. It's like that old Zlatan quote, innit? Do you remember the Zlatan Ibrahimovic quote about, why have a Ferrari and drive it like a Fiat 500? Like, I feel like that's absolutely how they've used Marvin Harrison Jr. so far.
Yeah. So you've summed up the 5 worst scoring franchises on the FSI. Quick run through your top 5, Phil. Who've you got coming in at number 5?
So number 5 are the Denver Broncos. I think you're now seeing the fruits of bringing in a highly qualified coach like Sean Payton. Obviously, he had the 1 year with Russ, which kind of hurt them in terms of the win-loss total and how that affects the score. However, once he got his quarterback, everything else there felt like it was already in place. For now, they're in a brilliant position where they can invest around Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix, and this again just kind of shows that methodology. When you look at that class that Bo Nix was drafted in, Bo Nix was a jerk before he moved to Oregon. Like his time at Auburn, he was a laughing stock, and people were completely out on him as an NFL projection. Yet he salvaged his stock. He had the time on task. He was a 5-year senior. And has landed, because he wasn't going to one of those sides in the danger zone, he's landed in a situation where the support was there to develop and nurture his talent in terms of the head coach, the quality of the offensive line. Now, they actually scored the best in the entire 32 teams, the sack rate over the last 3 years. Their offensive line is unbelievable. Like, we talk about their elite defense all the time that puts them in advantageous situations, but it's very, very hard for the teams to get to Bo Nix as well. Like, if they spend a little bit of money in the offseason with a couple more weapons, they've obviously got a lot of guys on rookie contracts at the moment performing out of their minds. They invested in Evan Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, obviously, as veteran options in the offseason last season. However, if they go out and look to invest again in a high-profile piece, I think it's fair to say Evan Ingram didn't work out the way they wanted him to. If they can go and find Christ, I don't want to wish Isaiah Likely away.
I know what you're going to say.
I don't want to wish Isaiah Likely away, but if they can get Bo Nix a weapon like Isaiah Likely, like that could be absolute wheels up for their offense in terms of where they go next year. But yeah, they're just proof that you don't need the best QB in the class if your situation is good enough. And that's they're the kind of living embodiment of that at the moment.
Yeah, I think they're in a great place going forward, and I think Peyton is just a phenomenal head coach. He demands an awful lot. I don't think he was getting anywhere near that with Russell Wilson. But I think now with Bo Nix on the centre, I think that's a franchise that quite rightly have ranked so high on your FSI. In at number 4, Phil?
Yeah, right. So number 4, San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, I aren't going to say they cheat the scoring slightly. However, they have got consistency in the fact that Kyle Shanahan now has been there for 9 seasons. As the head coach. And for the last 3 seasons, until this offseason, he also assumed the mantle of OC. They didn't have a designated offensive coordinator. So you couldn't punish them for any offensive coordinator changes because he was see-all, do-all ruler of the San Francisco 49ers. They have appointed a new OC this offseason, or rather promoted somebody internally to take that mantle and take a little bit off Shanahan's plate. Which knocked the score slightly, but you might argue so it should because they've fudged the numbers. But look again, they are proof of they score well across the board. They don't excel in any one category, but they score well across the board in all 4 areas, and. If you strike gold between someone who can run an offense and call an offense, like we know Kyle Shanahan has, again, like where would Brock Purdy be on this? Like Mr. Irrelevant when he was drafted, like a 7th round draft pick, final pick of the NFL draft, sits in one of the most stable franchises and can make them tick, and make them tick at a hell of a level. That feels like I'm doing Brock Purdy a disservice because I actually think he's more than that. And I think there's massive parts of the evaluation we all missed. But again, it just goes to show you haven't got to be this elite prospect. If you land in an organization capable of surrounding you with stability for you to flourish.
Just on the 49ers organisation and Brock Purdy and Shanahan. Interesting, obviously, Sam Darnold was asked about his journey to becoming a Super Bowl champion and the one stop on his kind of journey across the NFL and where he learned so much and he was surrounded by the right people was the 49ers. And he said working with Brock Purdy and Shanahan every day is enabled him to kind of get the belief back in himself and get him to a place where he is now. And, you know, he's carrying the coat for that draft class, as an analysis said yesterday after winning that Super Bowl. So, yeah, a great organisation. And what I've said it before on the show, and I think we'd all agree, what Shanahan has done this year with the weapons that he lost in the offseason and the injuries and stuff that's gone on at the 49ers, whether, you know, if you're going to put your tinfoil hat on and believe this injury crisis that they go through is linked to a substation next to them. Just what they've done as an organisation is phenomenal. Who have you got in it? I've seen this. Number 3 surprises me, but listening to obviously the method of the scoring and that, it does kind of make sense. But I don't think they're as stable as you've scored them, Phil.
Yeah, okay. So number 3 is the Kansas City Chiefs. When you draft a unicorn and draft him into a situation where the head coach is stable, the offensive coordinator was stable, you allow him to sit and develop, even in spite of the mercurial talent. Like, oh God, don't it feel sickening being nice about the Chiefs and about Pat Mahomes? But like that is the situation. Like, they were in the unique position to be able to take this mercurial talent and make him wait and help him learn under the savvy guidance of someone like Alex Smith. They also, again, they score incredibly well because until this season, the winning record was high. The win-loss column was high, which obviously accounts for 30% of it. Coaching stability. They had the OC change in, obviously, Matt Nagy's out now. But that had been relatively stable. The sack rate, again, their O-line is, upper end of the middle of the league in terms of the sack rate allowed. And again, certain superstars can slightly dissuade the numbers, but when you're looking at the offensive skill position cap dedication, it is only 10% of the metric. But Travis Kelce has been one of the league's highest paid skill players for a foreseeable amount of time. Therefore, I mean, they score where they're at. And yes, we know their team has got some issues. That feels nice to say, doesn't it? But, in terms of lack of running game, but we've seen running backs can be found at any stage in the draft. Pacheco was serviceable pre-knee injury. There's lots of rumors they might go out and spend some big money this offseason on someone like Breece Hall. I don't think they need to spend top of the range free agency market on Breece Hall, money on Breece Hall. I think they can go and they can look at that next year. They could look at Kenneth Walker. We've seen just when he gets that bell cow rather than Seattle split carries, what that can do for that running game. The one I would love to see, no, I don't want to. The one I'd hate to see there is Travis Etienne. Like, I think we've hit a point where people doubt what he's worth, yet we've seen just what he's capable of. If Travis Etienne ended up there on a snip of what it had cost to get Breece Hall there, I think that could be absolute money for their franchise. And again, they'll pay him a contract that keeps them scoring high in the skill cap percentage as well. They're going to be up there for a while, and that is down to the situation they drafted Mahomes into. They drafted him into an advantageous situation. Like I say, when you put a unicorn in that situation, you're going to be money for a long time.
Got a lot of interesting what you say there on running back, and obviously they go and spend an awful lot of money this offseason. I know we're going to go on shortly into your mock draft, and when it comes down to there or thereabouts in Kansas City Chief, I've got a question for you on that one. So,
Cool.
who have you got at number 2?
Yeah, number 2, I suppose, like probably the most steady Eddie of the lot, and it's the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers score solid across the board. Like in the NFC North, they win more than they lose. They drafted Jordan Love and had the luxury of sitting in behind Aaron Rodgers. So he interestingly enough, was one that I had to remove from my own original case study because he didn't play in those first 3 years. Again, he would have skewed the data massively. They don't change coaching a lot. Obviously, there's been changes this offseason. I just imagine if they actually spent money on the offensive side of the ball, like, you know, that score would take a bump again. They're just the model of consistency. What's interesting is whether they've got enough at the top to actually crack it and win the lot. There has been, I read somewhere the other day about coaches that have been in jobs and how long they've been in jobs before they won their first Super Bowl. And LaFleur and Shanahan now are massive outliers. Yes, people love their philosophy. Yes, it keeps them stable. Yes, it keeps them qualifying for the playoffs more often than not, but they've yet to get over the line. I don't know. Would the Packers fans trade a little bit of stability for one shot of glory? Who knows? Like, what? Look at someone like the Bucks and what they had to put up with post that. Who knows? But yeah, they score well across the board. They're just the model of a stable franchise.
Excellent. And your last one, mate. Who's the leader of the pack when it comes down to franchise stability index?
Yeah, and it's not even close. It's the Rams by a considerable margin. So the LA Rams, Les Snead is just a master at what he does in terms of franchise building. And what is so beautiful is they're in a position at the moment where you look at this upcoming draft class. The Chargers, excuse me, the Rams have got 2 first-round picks. They need help in the secondary. They need help at corner. I do genuinely believe they could also do with another wide receiver. I know they've got Puka. I know they've got Devontae Adams, but at 33, wouldn't it be great to get an elite target on a rookie contract that can help balance and take some coverage off Puka? Not that he needs a lot of help. He's phenomenal. But they have a pick at the back end of the first round. And I can thoroughly, totally, and utterly see them spending that on a quarterback because they can. They've got the MVP in Matt Stafford. But Matt Stafford's 37 years old. With the stability that another season of Matt Stafford could afford them, to take a gamble on a developmental talent like Ty Simpson, you know, they're in the perfect position to stay stable and protect and develop their next QB. So yeah, how the rich stay rich.
Definitely, because this is obviously their second, or the early of their first round picks was the result of mismanagement by Atlanta, making a ridiculous trade.
Penix one, wasn't it?
That's right.
No, this was it.
No, James Pierce.
To get an edge rusher, wasn't it? Yeah.
James Pierce trade last year.
Which felt completely just like a plaster over cracks issue. But yeah, as you said, the rich get richer. This is an example of the Rams getting a great deal out of that, and now they've got 2, quality picks to do more with this year. Maybe the final roll of the dice for Matt Stafford. So maybe they'll.
What I will say about that, Phil, is you've got some cracking examples of QBs that's not necessarily the top of the tree that's gone into stable franchises and turned out to be really, really good. Bo Nix, like you said, absolute fantastic, drafted into an organisation where he's well protected, good play calling head coach, offensive minded coach, and he's just blossomed.
Yeah, man, and the kind of proof's in the pudding when you go back and you look. Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold, QB, Super Bowl winning QB. Baker Mayfield. These are all guys. Like it's never been a question of their talent. It's how susceptible they are to surviving dysfunction. Some of them have needed to move on to new teams to be able to survive it. Trevor Lawrence was such a talent. He looks like he's been able to survive it in Jacksonville. But yeah, like I said, I'm really, really kind of passionate about kind of where this can go. Like we spend years evaluating quarterbacks. Like I don't want FSI to be like a hot take tool. I want it to be a lens, a way that we stop blaming players for systemic failures. Like I said, these NFL teams spend millions yearly on scouting and evaluating quarterbacks. Like, but we and people within like kind of football space and people who love the game spend almost no time like talking about like the franchises that develop them. So it's just my attempt to kind of flip that conversation.
Yeah, two or three, 4 bad games, and you look at a snapshot of the internet, and that's it. Let's get him out. He's bossed his crap. It's like there's people that's being paid a hell of a lot of money to pick these players out that they've seen something in this guy. There's more to it than his arms just fell off and he can't throw the ball anymore.
That's it.
Yeah, really good. Love that, Phil.
Quite a smooth transition from going from franchise stability index and how stable that organisation is for new people coming into the organisation, especially quarterbacks, leads us nicely on to Phil's 2026 mock draft. We've got them all wrote down here. It's clear. It's as clear as day, isn't it? Who's going number 1, Phil?
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, whether franchise stability says they should or they shouldn't, it's going to be Fernando Mendoza. His run to a national championship with Indiana was unprecedented. He rose to the occasion consistently, delivered in the biggest moments. The game against Penn State was incredible. The game against Oregon as well, the couple of performances against Oregon. And then obviously he leads them over your beloved Miami, Tom, in the national championship. What was really interesting was Tom Brady was there firsthand to watch that game, decked out in his Raiders attire, which still seems really weird. But, there's a lot of talk at the moment about how Mendoza's manner, the geekiness in him and things like that, will appeal to the kind of Tom Brady football psycho and how there might be a match made in heaven. So FSI be damned, I think this is happening.
Yeah, it broke my heart the other week. But just a phenomenal talent. I'm just with that, obviously the Raiders landscape, it's going to be tough for them.
I suppose what FSI says is just be patient. Be patient, because if the talent's there, you're going to have to wait for the situation to stabilise. It won't necessarily be a knock on him if things don't work straight away.
I think they've not just got to be patient with Mendoza, they've got to give Kubiak a chance as well.
Yeah, without doubt.
You know what I mean? They can't just keep going round in this circle. You've got to break the chain to eventually start forward progression.
So in number 2 in the 2026 draft, the New York Jets. Obviously, I mentioned before about Dante Moore. He would have been a New York Jet if he committed to the draft. Who have you got going there?
Yeah, look, for the Jets, it's #draft good players. They're going to take Arvell Reese, off-ball, edge, hybrid from Ohio State. He broke out in an unbelievable manner this year. And when you look at what the Jets just need good players across the board. They've got that significant draft capital to do it. Starting with this pick, and he's a turn setter. When you look at the lack of disruption on an Aaron Glenn defense, after watching him at Detroit and then watching what he had at his availability in New York last year, he needs stars and he needs people that can be disruptive. His instincts, first step burst, versatility, absolutely jump off the tape. 69 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, 6.5 sacks across 14 games last season. his ability to move across the defensive front, gives them the opportunity to use him in really creative ways and just be a mismatch weapon and a force and a turn setter.
With just two things on Arvel Reese, do you think he's going to kind of be a hybrid role there, or do you think he's going to commit to coming off the edge?
If they are smart, they will make him matchup and scheme dependent. They will utilize him wherever they see best. I think he projects slightly at the moment, based on what I've seen, as a better off-ball backer than he does edge. But that is the same way Micah Parsons was thought about. When Micah Parsons came into the league at Dallas, he was predominantly an off-ball backer who had played some edge. It was once he got into the league that he really broke out as an edge rusher. I think he's capable of doing both. I think it'll be, don't be surprised to see quite a split in terms of what he's asked to do.
And just how big of an advantage, not an advantage, but how big of a kind of education would he have had? Obviously, at Ohio State with former New England defensive coordinator and Detroit Lions head coach Matt Patricia being there last year. That just learning from a guy who is experienced in running NFL defensive schemes.
Yeah,
surely the education he's had there, that's just going to give him that edge.
Absolutely, and not just that, but the sheer number of first-round prospects he's played with over the last couple of years as well. Ohio State have got an argument, particularly over the last couple of years, to be considered a 33rd NFL franchise. The amount of talent that goes through there is unbelievable, and he's had to bide his time. He didn't play a great deal last year. It really has been an emergence this year, but one that's well deserved.
Number 3, Arizona Cardinals. Who have you got going there? I've obviously got a feeling it might be one of my guys from Miami.
Yeah, it is. Okay, it's Ruben Bain. I know one of the questions I field most from Ravens fans within this group, within the UK Ravens group as well, is about where do we see, is there a chance we get Ruben Bain? Look, third might be high. Maybe I was writing this in the delirium of post-national championship, but there's no way he makes it to us at 14. Short arms, damned. The tape is just too good. Arizona would love a QB, but there's not one on the board worthy of that selection. So just get your potential game wrecker. It's all built on traits. His elite first step, violent hands, the motor all the way through. I'm not even worried about the fact that he's got T-Rex arms. He's going to be great.
Yeah, I think his ability to collapse that pocket when he's bull rushing, his change of direction, and just how he turns that speed into power just in a flick. He's going to be a phenomenal addition there for Arizona.
Absolutely.
Number 4, Tennessee Titans on the clock.
Yeah, Francis Maiwanoa, again, tackle from Miami. There's 2 choices: give him a skill player or protect him. And I think you can let Cam Ward do what he does best if you can keep him upright. They gave up a hell of a lot of sacks last year. And Maiwanoa's plug and play. Put him at left tackle, put him opposite JC Latham at right tackle, and you've got 2 bookends for the next 10 years. It makes complete sense to me. He's got immediate value and long-term upside, to protect your money, man.
Number 5, moving down the board. John Harbaugh's in it. New York. Who were the Giants taking at number 5? Is this where we see the first wide receiver off the board?
It is, and there's 2 lines of thought, right? Do they need best player available? Do they, because I've got certain defensive players scored higher than Kyle Tate, but I just think reports even as late as last week that Malik Neighbors is still in a knee brace. Wan'Dale Robinson is set to hit free agency. they need a weapon, like on two fronts. Like they need someone to play opposite Malik Neighbours when he's healthy, and then in the more immediate short term, they might need a guy that's the answer. Kynal Tate is just so polished, like typical Ohio State receiver. Really kind of stood out this year in terms of his yards per catch. Really kind of extended, did more in the intermediate to long game, and I think he had a kind of catch rate of over 15 yards per catch. Whereas before, I thought of him as more of a chain mover. He does a little bit of everything with inside-outside versatility. Really well polished, high floor player. It came down to that, or give him a tackle to play opposite Andrew Thomas. But I just think right now the need at wide receiver is greater.
Number 6, then we've got our AFC North friends, the Dog Pound. How are they messing up their first round pick? Well, I guess they're not going to. You're going to give them a good player.
I'm going to give them a very good player. 6 might be early, but I'm going to give them Spencer Tafano, the tackle at Utah. I think it's really important that whether it's Shador or insert any other QB here, they need to, keep them upright for as much as possible. Tafano, for me, is versatile. Like, he can play on both sides of the line, and did do during his time at Utah. You've got the case where Cam Robinson and Jack Conklin are both set to hit free agency. They need tackle help, and they must plan to combat that turnover. To get an elite player with 5 years contract control, makes complete sense. Like, for me, pairing him up with DeJuan Jones gives them a perfect young tandem to develop. Right now, his power's in the run game, which suits because I love Quinshon Judkins. How it broke my heart when the Browns took him last year. But his yards per carry was worryingly low for the kind of work rate he was given. So the fact that Fano's power in the run game could open things up for him, it just makes him a logical pick for me.
Nice. Coming in at 7, the Commanders. They had a weird year, didn't they? Where are they going to sort their franchise out?
Yeah, so obviously they took a gamble on adding vets on both sides of the ball in order to support Jaden Daniels after an amazing rookie season. It just didn't fall right. I've gone David Bailey, the edge at Texas Tech, the best pure rusher in the draft class. Hands down. Will he be an every down player? Probably not. He's a little bit of a tweener size-wise, but what a pass rusher. He's got combat and counters to absolutely everything you could throw at him. And I just think, last year, the Washington, the Commanders' leading sack guy was Von Miller, who's got to be at least 80 now. No, that's a little bit harsh. I think he's 37 and obviously an absolute legend. But this just gives them someone else to worry about and brings the type of juice that the unit was missing last year. He's quick, he's explosive. Sometimes at the college level, it's just about that production at that position, and he has it in abundance. I think he gives them an absolute disruptive weapon.
Coming on to 8. A team with absolutely no firepower, the New Orleans Saints. Are you going on the offensive side of the ball? I
absolutely am. Highest rated player in the draft class for me, regardless of position, Jeremiah Love right now. He is electric. There's all the arguments about positional value, but as the league shifts towards more too high safety sets to quell the passing game, the emergence of pass-catching running backs, or the re-emergence of pass-catching running backs, is absolutely fierce. And this, for me, is where Love shines. He's that good a route runner. You could line him up in the slot. You can play him from the backfield. He's just an absolute weapon. And, for me, you're starting to see the decline of Alvin Kamara. I think injuries are finally starting to catch up with him. You've got Olave on one side. They got rid of Rashid Shaheed to the Seahawks mid-season. They got rid of Brandon Cooks, cut him. They just need help. I trust Kellen Moore to have the creativity to use him well. And yeah, I just think like Tyler Shook was a real pleasant surprise last season.
I'm just about to say that.
Support him, take some of that burden off. And yeah, to me, I think he's the best player in the draft, and they're going to get him at 8.
Before we go on to number 9, the team in at number 9 is obviously the Kansas City Chiefs. Do you see this is where the Chiefs might trade up to take Jeremiah Love? Obviously losing 2 running backs this year to free agency. This is the next weapon for them and for the future.
Yeah, could
Mahomes.
absolutely see it. Obviously, I like the free agency class. Christ, if they don't want to pay top dollar on one of the pass catching guys, right? Here's my sneaky off-season bet. Go into, be the team, be the franchise that takes Tyler Algier in free agency. He was an 1,000-yard rusher before they drafted Bijan, and they drafted Bijan because the guy's phenomenal. But he's better than a second fiddle back or a backup running back. He's got hardly 4 years worth of tread on the tires because he's sat behind Bijan for a lot of snaps. I can see Tyler Algier going on and having that kind of Michael Turner breakout that he got when he moved to Atlanta, for those old enough to remember it. And, if they plug that gap, then I could see them making the most of spending that elite capital somewhere else. Now, interestingly, I've gone with a guy. I'm a firm believer, like, once you've put something on tape, like, that can't be undone. And I think it's fair to say Peter Wood's 2025 tape at Clemson was nowhere near what we saw in 2024. But 2024 showed a guy who, quite simply, is disruptive. 3 tech. Like, for me, it's just the opportunity to pair him with Chris Jones. Chris Jones already commands so many double teams, triple teams, and so much of an offensive line's thought process that putting Woods with him almost feels unfair, because you're going to leave this dynamic rushing threat or pass rush threat to disrupt plays before they develop. Like, you're going to have to split your attention between both. And that, for me, just feels like a little bit of a cheat code. I do appreciate there's growth there still. It doesn't always turn pressure into finishes. And I do appreciate that. I mean, his interviews are going to be massive this offseason, because people are going to want to know if it was him or if it was what the hell was going on at Clemson. And you get the feeling that all these combine interviews, that's what people are going to be asking, because the tape never took the step forward. But what he put on tape in 2024 was exceptional. So I'm willing to back that. And again, in this situation, yeah, I think he'll be great.
Yeah, a guy that I was hoping maybe would drop to 14. Any chance?
It's possible. I mean, if you look at recent projections, people have got him going right at the tail end of the first round, because the 2025 shape never showed the improvement. Obviously, I hate the idea of us drafting for need. A lot of that will depend on when Beaks is. Let's wait and see.
And then rounding out the top 10, the Cincinnati Bengals. Are they going to take another wide receiver? Of course they're not. Who are they taking?
Nah, so look, their defense has got holes. You could make an argument for a corner here, but I've decided to take my favorite defensive player in the draft, Caleb Downs, safety from Ohio State. They need help all over the deal, let's be completely honest. And Caleb Downs is an absolute turn setter. Like last year, the Bengals, they finished near the bottom of the league in overall efficiency, yards allowed, points conceded. They struggled against the run. They gave up touchdowns at an alarming rate. And they put that offense, it's great for us, isn't it, as Ravens fans? But they put an offense with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins in shite positions over and over again because they couldn't hold their end of the piano. Like Downs brings immediate credibility and playmaking ability to a defense that needs both. Like, let's just tell it how it is. Like, for me, he's one of the best overall prospects in the class. I've got him top 3 in terms of overall prospects. He combines elite football intelligence with high-end athleticism. He went to Alabama and started day one as a true freshman, and was arguably our best defensive player that year. When Coach Saban retired, he decided to test the transfer portal, ended up going to Ohio State, winning a national championship there. He's a leader. He's smart. He constantly gets to the ball on time, processes quickly. He's a great open field tackler, which, you know, will combat some of the fact that their linebackers play like they've not met. You know, he's exactly the stabilizing presence that that defense needs. It's a filthy suggestion, but I know we talked about it when you guys talked about it when Ken was on the other week. But if he was to switch the 14 to positional value, I'd take the punt again. I'd take the punt again because a 3 safety set allowing Kyle Hamilton to be whatever we want Kyle Hamilton to be, to play with Caleb Downs. And then obviously I know Ken wasn't overly fuzzy about Malachi Starks, but it would allow Malachi Starks to grow as well. And that 3 as a rotation would be unbelievable. But I just can't see a position where a player as good as Downs gets all the way to 14.
Is Downs the ultimate chess piece, just as how versatile his skill set is? He's going to be able to succeed wherever a defense needs him.
No.
You know, you look at his athleticism. You know, he can transition from zones and running in man coverage, change his direction. You know, the understanding he's got of his ability and his positioning and physicality. He is the ultimate chess piece, isn't he?
Yeah, well, for me, it's the intelligence, but he's not the most elite athlete. I don't think you can bring him down into the box and play him like we would Kyle Hamilton. But what he does is he's clever enough to read and diagnose. I think he would be a player that allows Malachi Starks to do what Malachi Starks did well on his college tape, and that's ball hawk, because you've got that security of Downs being able to fill any gaps. Honestly, like, I know there'll be some Ravens fans absolutely going mental at the idea of another first-round safety, but man, there's safeties and there's truly elite talents, and for me, Downs, like I say, I had Kyle Hamilton as the best player in the class when he was drafted, and I've got Caleb Downs in my top 3, and he's not third.
We on the clock now. We've got the Dolphins all changing franchise at the minute.
Yeah, and again, the Dolphins could go a lot of ways. They desperately need help in their secondary. They've got a lot of pending free agents there. The big thing for me is they've got uncertainty at quarterback, and they've got uncertainty. I say uncertainty. They've got pretty much certainty at wide receiver, because it is certain that with a $51.9 million cap hit, Tyreek Hill will not be on that team next year. They've got Jalen Waddle, who I would, if you want to play fantasy, I'd go send out low ball offers on Jalen Waddle, see if you can get him this year, because I think he's due a bounce back. But for me, I've got him taking Mekhi Lemon, wide receiver from USC. Inside, outside flexibility. Really plays strong, plays above his size because he's not the biggest guy, but he plays with technical foundation, route position. When you look at the wide receivers that have won and really broken out and transitioned into the NFL quickly in recent years, it's guys who can separate. And that's what Mekhi Lemon does in spades. So that flexibility there, I just think, he'd make a great Miami Dolphin.
Then we're going to Texas to the Cowboys at 12.
Yeah, I've got him taking Keldrick Falk, edge from Auburn. I think he is a moldable piece that still needs some developing, but the traits, the size, the shutdown against the run is immediate, but he still needs some help on the kind of pass rushing front. What I like is he does enough of both well enough already to be an immediate starter, an immediate contributor. And after obviously trading Micah, after the unfortunate passing of Marshawn Nealand, they're in a position where they could just do with a little bit more up front to support Donovan Iziraku. So yeah, to me, I think he does enough of everything well without being amazing at anything yet, but he's got a frame and size and athletic traits that people will be salivating over in terms of like, you know, what they could do with him if it all clicks.
Yeah. Well, I've just seen what you've got for this one, Phil, and this is ridiculous. This shouldn't be allowed. We should stop this instantly.
Yeah, so
we've got Rams.
Yeah, so I've got the Rams taking Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson is my favorite receiver in the class. I love the way he plays. I love his game. The Rams need help in the secondary, right? I am not ignoring that at all. They desperately need cornerback help, and you could even make an argument they need a safety. But like I said earlier, Devontae Adams isn't going to last forever, and the ability to put Jordan Tyson opposite Apuka Nacua save Devontae Adams for more crucial moments as he hits that kind of. He's going to be 34 this year. He has the ability to. He runs nice routes, separates well, threatens downfield. What I like is he does a little bit of everything really, really well. He doesn't need high volume to make an impact. Like I say, he's my favorite wide receiver in this class, and we keep talking about the rich getting richer. Like, this would just be one of those situations for me.
I'm vetoing it anyway, so it doesn't happen. I've called it. Only run Goodell.
Just before you get to 14, Dans, because we know what's coming up at pick 14. Josh, our good friend, says, before you get to the Ravens, Phil, did you change your player pick at all for the Ravens after Jesse Minter was appointed head coach?
Oh, he's just took my question.
No. I released this draft. This went live on In Between Media before Minter was hired. My pick, yeah. Thanks, Ben. Yeah, Josh drafted 3 in the first round.
I mean, to be fair to Josh, he probably will read your mock draft for the 2026 draft just in time for 2027. We know how he works. When God was handing out brains, he thought he said trains and asked for a slow one.
For the Ravens, I had, when the board fell the way it fell, there was a couple of choices for me. I know there's needs at edge rusher. I know that we're clamoring for a guard. I'll break it to people. I think I'm bucking the trend. I'm not as high on Vega Ioane as others are. But again, that's 2 things for me: corner or the guy I took, Sonny Styles, linebacker from Ohio State. Listen, Teddy Buchanan did a great job last year. He really, really did. I like Teddy Buchanan. But I'm firmly of the mindset, don't let drafting a good player stop you from taking a great player. And thanks, Nick. All right, I'm glad on that. Sonny Styles, for me, is a great, great player. One of the best in the class. And he slips a little bit because of positional value. I don't think the value matches at edge or offensive line at that point. So it was that or corner. There's still 3 good corners on the board that are well worthy of conversation. We know that our corner depth isn't amazing at the moment, but I trust us to be able to fill that. A player like Styles is rare, and I do just think he is the perfect fit for Jesse Minter. He's fast, explosive, rangy, sideline to sideline. He diagnoses quickly. And for me, I think he brings the best out of Roquan. Like, he's got a skill set that allows Roquan to attack and play downhill. like freeing them both. While Styles can take the matchup responsibilities in the pursuit out of the backfield. For me, in Minter's defense, he's not just a linebacker. He's an absolute unit. He's a weapon. He's another move piece, and the kind of high impact talent we could build around for years. So I know it's not a pick that a lot of people you'll see in other mock drafts, like when you look at national media analysts and things like that. I know that it's not necessarily a position of need, as it were. But one, you've never known EDC draft for need. Again, it's not just about taking the best player on the board, which I firmly believe he would be at this point. It's about taking the right player that does the most for your new head coach and his defense as well. And I just think like this would be one of those typical picks where everyone goes, "Oh, the Ravens have done it again." How did it fall to the Ravens? And yeah, I'll take it every day. Hey, what?
You're on mute. You're on mute, Hans.
No.
No, you're not now. I unmuted you. I muted you before when you were unzipping something. I'd dread to think what you were unzipping as well.
It's charger for laptop. We're into hour 74 of this podcast, so I've just had to charge generator up and put some diesel in it and fire.
Well, I'll tell you what, guys.
To be fair, in fact, my lift for work's here, so I'm off.
I can talk ball all day. Like if you guys are on the clock, fire through. Just find your best one. Talk to me about any pick. Like
no. I'm charging up now, Phil. We're going to Florida. We're going to the Bucks.
He's just sent kids down mines to get some coal.
Put my Ivy vest on, so I'm ready.
Go on, Dan. 15.
15 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, just a need fit, an offense fit. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end from Oregon. He's the clear tight end one in the class, does a little bit of everything. And it's a position they need on their offense. Like K. Dotton flashed at times, but hasn't turned out to be a long-term answer. This, for me, just gives them another weapon. Like, does Mike Evans come back on he's a book for life. I can't see him going anywhere else, but does he come back or does he retire? If not, you've got the later stages now of Chris Godwin's career. You've got Emeka Egbuka threatening a breakout. This just gives them another option from the tight end position. He's got rare explosiveness, 6'3", good size, wins well downfield. Blocking's competent, which you need if you're going to spend that capital on him in a first-round tight end. Yeah, I like him. He's got Pro Bowl upside.
So we'll go 16 through to 20, Phil. 16 New York Jets.
Yep, Jamud McCoy, corner from Tennessee, is my favorite corner in the class. There's a little run on corners now. Injured all of this season. But yeah, the tape in 2024 was amongst the best in the country. So they're getting a steal and they need good football players everywhere.
Moses City up next, Detroit Lions in at number 17.
Again, keep that cornerback run coming. All right, Mansour Delane. I've seen Mansour Delane go as high as 5. I think he went 5 in one of the ESPN guys' mocks this week. Look, he had a really, really good season. He's done it at 2 schools now. He did it at West Virginia and then transferred across to LSU last season and did it there as well. They've got concerns in the secondary. Terrion Arnold hasn't quite delivered consistently. Meek Robinson is looking at free agency. So he shores that up.
And in at 18, the Vikings.
Yeah, Caden McDonald, tackle, one tech, nose tackle from Ohio State. You'll see anywhere between here and the early second for McDonald. He's not a lock as a first rounder, but I really like him. And I just think they leaned on experience last year in Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen, but that's always short-term answers. Like, I think just pairing him up with Jalen Redmond allows them to stabilize it for the foreseeable future. In a 3-4 offense, I think he projects as an ideal kind of inside anchor. He can absorb double teams, control gaps. which with Redmond's quickness and kind of penetration on that line just gives them a perfect tandem.
In at number 19, Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, look, this is one of those things, right, where people keep talking about this draft not being a good draft. It's not a good draft if you're a fantasy football player because it's not lined with like wide receivers, running backs, QBs. But it's got really good defensive players. And I'm going to pick a couple of linebackers back to back now. I'm starting with CJ Allen. CJ Allen from Georgia is a decisive downhill style, fits amazingly in the kind of modern NFL. Plays with excellent trigger speed, highly productive. He offers value as a blitzer on the inside. Like when you compare the athleticism with football intelligence, like he's a really, really good player. And the Panthers are a franchise that are improving rapidly. They could just do with, he's already offered, Georgia run a pro style defense. I think he'll transition smoothly straight into that kind of middle linebacker spot and grow into a real defensive leader for him.
I like that one. Number 20, we're back in Texas. The Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, so the Cowboys' second pick of the first round, acquired in the Micah Parsons trade. Take Anthony Hill, linebacker from Texas. He's a Texas native. He then went and played for the Texas Longhorns, and he stays in state to play for the Cowboys. Kenneth Murray wasn't the answer for him this year. There's an opening alongside the Marvian Overshawn. He plays with urgency, physicality, instincts, arrives at the football seemingly always at the right time. He is a turn setter. He's a turn setter. He's aggressive. He's physical. Do you know what he reminds me of? And again, this isn't always a nice thing to say, but he reminds me of an old Steelers linebacker. Like, just fast and mean. Like, he's got that to him. And I think, Dallas will keep him in state.
Excellent.
Moving on to 21, we round out the AFC North. Are the Steelers going to give Aaron Rodgers a nice weapon?
No, they're not. They're going to draft his successor. I've got them taking a punt on Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson, through the first 9 weeks of the college football season, was playing at a level that not many can rival. First-year starter, but a 4-year player at Alabama. Look, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to go on forever. It's still very much up in the air as to whether he comes back next season. I'm basing this on the fact that he does, and Simpson's cerebral approach and underrated athleticism get to learn off one of the best to ever do it. And put him in a position where eventually he's in a position to take over. Like, his evaluation, Ty Simpson's evaluation is all about extremes. Like, in the first half of the season, like, he looked amazing. Alabama went on a run where they were like carving up SEC opposition, and he looked fantastic. But then the concerns are real because as defenses adjusted and some of Alabama's weapons and the run game failed to show up, like, the lack of experience and physical tools, like, kind of showed up and exposed him somewhat. He's an absolute projection rather than a final product. But that's why Pittsburgh makes sense. Like, they're in a position where he can sit and learn if Rodgers returns, and if it.
What do you think for Will Howard though, Phil? Do you think he's going to push through? I know Rodgers has said a few nice things about him interviews like that. Or do you think
it's definitely a possibility? I just think Will Howard, respectfully, again, national champion. So who am I to knock him? Was more of a game manager than a game winner. I think Ty Simpson has the skill set to eventually, if developed properly, be a game winner for you. But it is a huge gamble because the sample size and history or recent history isn't firmly in his favour. Guys with the number of starts that he's had, puts him in the Zach Wilson, Mitch Trubisky range. And we all know how that worked out for those franchises. It set them back years, which is why I think it's really important. I've only made this call here because if Rodgers comes back, they can sit him. Yeah. If we find out in the next couple of weeks that Rodgers is retiring and going to go sit in a cave somewhere, this won't be the pick.
Yeah. They've also got a more offensive style head coach in place that can help these players develop, haven't they?
Absolutely.
22. Oh, for the love of God, give the poor boy Herbert something
I've been practicing. Right. I've been practicing this one. You want me to say it?
Go on. Do it. I want you to sing it like you sang it on that voice note to me earlier.
In the style of Shaggy. So it's Vava Vega Ioane.
Not bad. Like, the easiest thing to tell you is to everyone he goes by Vega.
Well, why put rest of that there then?
Just to so Vega Ioane is the most solid guard prospect in the class. People are higher on him than I am. I see a guy who can contribute immediately from a pass blocking point of view, but I don't love him as a run defender. A run blocker right now. I don't think his movement forward is great. I don't think he gets to the second level overly well. But in the Chargers system at 2022, pick 22, 2022, what am I giving it? It keeps Justin Herbert clean. And if you think about putting a staunch kind of pass blocking defender in behind Herbert, or in front of Herbert even, no fucking good behind him, is he? But put him in front of Herbert with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater healthy. That offensive line all of a sudden looks really, really mean, and we know that that's the kind of way that Jim Harbaugh builds his teams. I don't think he's a bad player. I worry about how often I'm seeing him drafted at 14 to us. I think he's good. Good.
I was just going to ask that question because it's like with the limited guard prospects you see in first round, he keeps cropping up in our tongues. Do you think he's a plug and play for us, or do you think he's a bit more of a 2-year project?
Nah, he's definitely good enough to start straight away. But it's about his strengths as a player. And for me, his strengths are in pass protection and not run protection. And when you look at what we're going to want to set up, assumingly in Declan Doyle's offense, when the money is behind Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, to me, you want guys that can get to that second level and run block a little bit better than what Vega's shown so far. I've got no doubt he'll be a really solid pro. And he just, for me, again, if we were picking at 22, I'd feel more comfortable with it. But for me, at 14, it just feels a little bit rich based on what he's currently lacking.
Fair play.
At 23, it's the Eagles, another team where people go, "Oh, how did that player fall to them? Who's falling to the Eagles?"
Yeah, I'm taking Caleb Lomu, the other tackle from Utah. All right, so they've got two guys with the potential to be first-round tackles. I think the big thing here is Lane Johnson is an absolute legend, an absolute stalwart, but he can't go on forever. The Eagles build through their lines. They take a lineman on one side of the ball in every single draft, and they tend to do it in the first couple of rounds. Caleb Lomu just gives them a succession plan for Lane Johnson. He's a classic bet on development and upside, rare athletic traits, movement skills. I think he could start at guard straight away as well. They don't need, the thing about the Eagles is they don't need him to be the finished product immediately. They can invest and allow him to develop, learn from Lane Johnson, and then anchor the line for years after it.
24, the Browns are back on the clock after their trade last year with the Jags to get Travis Hunter. How are the Browns utilizing their wealth of picks this time around?
Yeah, so obviously they got Tyson Campbell in midway through the season, but also lost Greg Newsome, and Denzel Ward's injury history now probably moves him out of that elite tier. So I've got him taking Avian Terrell, younger brother of AJ Terrell, the Falcons corner. He's a corner as well, slightly undersized, but good footballing brain, quick hips, closing burst allows him to attack receivers really, really well. He's always one of those guys that seems in and around the ball, always pass breakups or getting involved in turnovers. In an aggressive kind of man-heavy scheme like the Browns, for me, he just gives them cost control as a starting player who brings that kind of physicality and that kind of bring your fucking dinner kind of mentality that they like to think they pride themselves on.
25. We're going off to Chicago. Were they getting some defensive help?
Nah, man, we're going to protect the investment. We're going to protect Caleb Williams. Obviously, they have Jones playing on one side of the line, but for me, Caden Proctor at Alabama, Ozzie Trapillo showed good growth late in the season, but this is another example of don't let a good player stop you taking a potentially great one. Proctor's huge, but he's not just huge as in like Falele huge. He can fucking move as well. He's like got that part of his game that Falele doesn't. He's a rare physical specimen, overwhelming size and strength with movement skills that just don't match a frame that big. Uproots defenders in the run game, generates displacement. He's decent as a pass protector. His technique isn't always the most consistent. But he can be an immediate difference maker for my favorite running back at the Bears in Kyle Monungai. When they let Monungai kind of work on the inside, I think Proctor adds true value in creating run lanes for him. Ben Johnson and the kind of coaching team there will help him develop. Chicago's betting on elite traits rather than a finished product again, but that's what you get when you get to the back end of the first. And I think they're in a position now where they can take that gamble.
So these, where are we now? We're up to pick 26. 6 picks left, Phil. Dans, do you want to run through them? Go through these final 6.
We've got 26. We're going up to Buffalo.
Yeah, they need wide receiver help. I've got them taking Denzel Boston from Washington. Big physical wide receiver, but the fact that he's big and physical, obviously that's a skill set that often doesn't translate because of a lack of separation. He separates well as well. He's got good body control, strong contested catch numbers. Again, that's sometimes a little bit of a death sentence because a high contested catch suggests they can't always separate. But he does, and he separates really well in and around the red zone. He had 11 touchdowns last season. 7 of them came in the red zone, which shows he can uncover in short spaces. He doesn't need to be force-fed targets, and his presence alone raises the floor of that unit because it hasn't got much of a floor, let's be completely honest. For an offense that's kind of searching for reliability and toughness that, they've maybe not got at the moment, he gives Josh Allen a boost, and again, that feels horrible for an AFC rival, but it is what it is. When I do these things, I'm not drafting to make the Ravens the strongest team. You've got to be fair for all 32, and he's a great fit there if he's available at 26.
27, back to the other side. We're going to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah. Do you know what? The first person that mentioned this player to me, he was always firmly on my radar, but the first time I got asked about him was Harriet in our chat. Harriet asked me about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at Toledo. He brings a really interesting kind of raw traits in terms of size, explosiveness, physicality. He's 6'3", long arms. He's a force playing downhill. He closes space quickly, tackles with authority. He's a real thumper. He's one that you can see being brought down to playing in the line of scrimmage and moved around to keep people guessing. He's never going to be that kind of true single high eraser. He's not going to play off the back end, but he's got a skill set that is going to allow you to be really physical in how you use him. When you're picking down there at the back end of the round, you're betting on traits. Look at how Seattle and I'm not saying that they're an immediate like for like, but the lazy person's comp will be what Nick and Emmanwori did for the Seahawks this year, just because of the size, because of the physicality, because of the rawness. It's a logical jump to make. There's no reason that McNeil Warren couldn't be or have the same type of impact, even though they're not necessarily identical like players.
28, the Texans.
Yeah, right. So this killed me. This right. I thought this was going to be real spicy. Blake Miller, right tackle at Clemson. I think he's a first round prospect. And when I wrote this draft or drafted this mock draft, I hadn't seen him mentioned anywhere in the first round. I've got to give a massive shout out to Jack Brentnell from the touchdown. He tweeted a lot about Blake Miller and was talking about how highly he ranked him. And it just made me go back in and watch the tape again, because obviously Clemson didn't have a great season. So it was like, right, what am I missing? And I went back in and I was really, really pleasantly surprised. He moves so well for his size, coordination and balance. He's got a really high developmental ceiling. Technique is still evolving, but with proper coaching, like, he could be a really, really good starting right for a long, long time. So I thought I was being real spicy putting him in the first round. Like, I hadn't seen him mocked in the first round anywhere. And then editing is such that there was a couple of days in getting my article out. And in the meantime, my heart sank when the legend that's Daniel Jeremiah dropped his first round mock. I think he had him going at 27 maybe, or 29. Either way, it was like a pick from where I had him. And I was like, oh, for what does this look like now? Looks like I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. I promise I won't. He's not a finished product, but he's a good prospect. So yeah,
it sounds a bit. I know he's not a QB, but it sounds a bit like your FSI scale. This is going into a situation where there's a good defense and a good defensive coach. It could be a perfect situation for Blake.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got the Rams back in at 29.
Yeah, so obviously FSI, like I mentioned earlier, the perfect thing would have been for if Ty Simpson was on the board, because that'd just be unfair. They need help in the secondary. I went receiver earlier and ignored the first couple of corners, but Brandon Cisse from South Carolina is he's not even a consolation prize. He's a great player to pick up at the end of the first round. Athletic profile teams look for when they're betting on an outside corner. Fast, patient through routes, puts himself in position to challenge throws. His interception numbers, he's not a ball hawk, but he stays in phase and disrupts receivers through their routes, and it shows up again and again on tape. He's comfortable in man coverage. He's the type of guy that teams will test early in his career. They see a rookie on the outside, they're gonna test him, but he's more than capable of handling that kind of top assignment for a lot of teams' offenses. He'd be going to a great situation with the Rams where it could be a long-term, again, cost-effective solution.
The rich get richer.
Absolutely.
At number 30, we've got the Broncos.
Yeah, so Caleb Banks, actually, again, I wrote this before the Senior Bowl. Lots of players at the Senior Bowl have the opportunity to elevate their stock. Others sink it. Caleb Banks is physically freakish. He is an absolute monster of a man with the size and physical traits to be a true disruptor. Yet there's effort players on tape, and I think there were times during Senior Bowl week where he was maybe caught out by people that just looked that little bit hungry and wanted him more. I'm betting on him landing again in a good situation and an already elite defense in Denver. But he's a name that the combine's going to be huge for him, because right now you're seeing just as many projections of him falling outside the top 32 picks as you are for him getting in it. I'm kind of looking at what he could be, 6'6", 330. His length and size just allows John Franklin Myers or Zach Allen to be their best. He doesn't need to be an immediate contributor. And maybe by the time he is ready, by the time they iron some of these things out, it helps that defense remain among the best.
31, we've got the New England Patriots.
Yeah, so I've got them taking Cash Howell, edge from Texas A&M. Really broke out last season with unbelievable production. 11.5 sacks this last year. He moved from the MAC, which is kind of one of the lower conferences in college football, if you like, one of the lesser heralded ones, to the SEC to play for the Aggies this year, and immediately looked the part. He's not the biggest, but his production is really difficult to ignore. Quick first step, natural blend, good range of hand fighting moves. And like I say, production that translates. The risk is real because he isn't the biggest and he's not done it for a long period of time at the highest level. But when you're picking at 31, you can't afford to be choosy. And that's the position the Pats find themselves in. They could well lose Chase on in free agency. And you know, in the right system, working with Vrabel and Vrabel's track record for being, you know, a good kind of defensive coach, he doesn't need to be rushed into a full-time role. He's got the tools long-term to be a difference maker beyond just a situational rusher if he's developed right, and I kind of trust Vrabel to do that.
And finally, the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Seahawks.
Yeah, Emmanuel Pregnon. It's arguable that Anthony Bradford was the only guard in the NFL worse this season than Daniel Falele. When you watch, like, just search him on X, on Twitter, on whatever social media you use. Just search Anthony Bradford. There's a guy, and I can't remember his name to credit him, but he just puts like montage clips together of just how bad Bradford is. Like, and it's laughably bad. So the opportunity to get a starting guard at pick 32 and address one of the few holes you maybe have, like, just seems unfair again. He offers an immediate upgrade, does Pregnon, playing with strength, balance, good hand usage. He's massively going to be a guard. Do you know what? Again, Nick, that would be beautiful. I'd be happy taking him anywhere within those kind of last 6 to 8 picks of the round. So if we can move back a little bit, this is one of those drafts, right, where I think everyone's going to want to trade back, and not a lot of people are going to find the right partners to do it. Interesting. Todd McShay had Ty Simpson go in his latest mock. He had Ty Simpson go at 30 into the Rams. Now, it could well be that someone wants to get up to around the 14 mark to maybe take a punt on Simpson, like before someone else can get him. Maybe they feel confident that he slips past that, but not much further. Maybe that's the type of trade back we could make. But Pregnon, like I say, day one, starting guard, plug and play. I would feel more comfortable with that right now than taking Ioane at cost. So yeah, there you go.
Phil,
quick question, Phil, before we get off. Do you reckon with coaching changes that we're going through, and obviously the scheme of the defense is going to change and whatnot, do you think that that's going to change the priority and the personnel that we're going to pick in this year's draft? Do you think the formula stays the same, or do you think Minter's going to have more of a stereotypical type player that he wants compared to what Harbour used to have, or do you think EDC is just going to stick to what he knows and best player available, and that's how we go?
I think Ken answered this real well last week. Like, Minter played with a lot of 3 safety sets that allowed him to move Derwin James down towards the box. And the ideal thing would be to put our secondary in a position where we can do that with Kyle Hamilton. The big thing for me is I think Minter is known for getting the best out of the players that he has available to him. And I think he'll be looking for ways to create matchups that allow our defensive stars, although they maybe weren't stars this last year, to play their best football and match their strengths. So again, one of the reasons I was so keen on getting Sonny Styles when it was available was his sideline-to-sideline ability allows Rokon to attack downhill. A safety would allow us to protect that back end and allow Hamilton to be much more versatile. But I've just got a feeling this will be a draft where EDC maybe deviates from the plan slightly and gives that new guy what he wants. But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Personally, I think if Caleb Down's there, I think we're taking him.
Yeah, I'd drive there and pick him up and
drop the fella off on way.
Yeah, exactly. On the return trip, take that fucker to the
airport. you need to drop seats down it back to fit the fucker
in. Phil, thank you very much, mate.
Pleasure.
It's been a marathon, but I mean, we've all learned. I've learned an awful lot off you tonight about franchise stability index. I'm sure these guys have learned a lot. I'm sure the 100 viewers, the 100 viewers that have stuck with us for the 2 hours and 22 minutes on X.
Do you know what? Like, I've said it a couple of times to you. Like, since this pod started, like the way you guys have taken off and developed, it's fantastic. I love seeing that there's fans from other teams now checking it out. Like, fair play to you for everything you're doing, guys. Just keep up the great work, and thanks for letting me come and talk ball with you all.
No worries, Phil. As you know, you're welcome anytime. Yeah, guys, thank you for everyone who's watched and tuned in. If you're not following us on X and you're on YouTube, jump on over to X. Give us a follow on there. Give Phil a follow at PoshPlaysFF. The stuff he puts out is, I mean, you've listened to him tonight. Go and read the stuff that he puts out there, and you will learn an awful lot. What Phil doesn't know about football and fantasy football, it's not worth knowing. So yeah, once again, Phil, thank you very much.
Boys.
I've been Thomas, they've been Danzai, Nathan, and our very special guest Phil. We've been Ravens across the pond. We'll catch you on the next one. See you guys.
Cheerio.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Ravens Across the Pond. We'll see you next time.